Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are putting on our headphones and heading north, way, way north. We're unpacking a piece of music that I guarantee you've heard before, even if you don't speak a word of Swedish.
Oh, absolutely. It's the Ballad of Hermanelig.
That's the one. And it has that melody that just, it gets stuck in your head. It's got that heavy, medieval, melancholic vibe.
It really does. It completely transcends language.
Exactly. And whether you know it from a Renaissance fair or, I don't know, one of the hundreds of heavy metal covers on YouTube, it feels like a staple. And on the surface, if you just read a quick translation, it seems like a pretty standard issue fairy tale, doesn't it?
It fits the mold perfectly. You've got a female mountain troll, a monster, who proposes to a handsome human knight, Sir Manilig. She offers him all these amazing gifts.
It's our treasure trove, yeah.
But he heroically refuses her because, well, she's a beast. He saves his soul. She runs off crying. The end.
It's the classic knight versus monster story. Good defeats evil. Humanity defeats the wild. But looking at the research you've brought in today, the historical analysis, the folklore studies, that whole narrative just completely falls apart.
It really does. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to toss out that mystical interpretation entirely. We are not looking at this as a story about magic.
Okay, so no fantasy creatures.
No. We're looking at this song as a piece of political propaganda.
Propaganda. That's a heavy label for a folk song.
It is, but the sources really back it up. This isn't a story about a monster. It's a historical record of othering. We're going to argue that the troll isn't a monster at all. That word troll is actually a dog whistle.
A dog whistle for who?
For the non-Christian, indigenous, or pagan populations during Sweden's very long and messy religious transition.
Wow. So by the end of this, we won't be hearing a victory song for a brave knight. We'll be hearing a tragedy.
A tragedy about social exclusion and really the systematic erasure of a culture. And to get there, we have to set the scene. Medieval Sweden was not a fantasy land. It was a real place going through a massive political upheaval.
Right, because the history books sometimes make it sound like a light switch. One day, paganism and Thor, the next day, Christianity. But your notes here paint a much messier picture.
Much messier. It was a slow, uneven grind over centuries. You had the new Christian order setting up power in the cities and the royal courts. But out in the rural areas, the deep forests, the old way was still very much alive.
And this is where the language gets weaponized. Words like troll or neck or elf, these weren't just for bedtime stories.
Precisely. They were socio-political labels. If you were rural, if you kept old rituals, if you were Sami or a woman holding power outside the church, you were often labeled a troll. It was a way to strip you of your humanity.
To place you outside the community.
Exactly. It makes you not human, which then justifies taking your land, ignoring your laws, and rejecting you completely.
Okay, so with those political glasses on, let's look at the lyrics again. The character of the troll woman feels completely different when you stop imagining, green skin and tusks.
It really does. Let's start with how she's introduced. The narrator says she has a false tongue.
She had a false tongue. Okay, so in a fairy tale, that just means she's a liar, a trickster.
Right, she's going to deceive him. But in the theological context of the time, false tongue had a very specific meaning, didn't it?
Yeah, it meant you were praying to false gods. It's an attack on her beliefs, not her honesty.
That's a huge distinction. It immediately signals to the Christian listener, do not trust this person, not because of what she does, but because of her religious allegiance.
And if you actually look at what she does, it's the opposite of monstrous.
No.
She doesn't ambush him. She doesn't threaten him.
Not at all. She's incredibly polite. She sings, Hermanelig, Hermanelig, will you be betrothed to me?
And then she says, and I love this line because it's so modern, surely you can answer but yes or no if you wish to or not.
She respects consent.
Totally. She's not dragging him to a cave. She's starting a negotiation.
And that's crucial. We need to see her not as a beast, but as a wealthy, powerful woman from the old culture. She's essentially proposing a merger.
A merger. That's a great way to put it. She sees a representative of the new power, the Christian knight. And she's offering a bridge between their worlds.
She's trying to assimilate, and she brings a dowry that proves she is not some savage. She's bringing serious capital to the table.
Okay, let's talk about that capital. Because the middle of the song, which is easy to just kind of glaze over as fantasy fluff, is a detailed inventory of assets.
Yeah.
And if I'm Manilig, I am taking this deal.
It is a very generous offer, but let's look at what those gifts actually represent. They are not random magical items. They are the economic and military backbone of the pre-Christian world.
Okay, let's break them down. First up, 12 steeds. 12 horses that go in the grove of roses, and she specifies no saddle, no bridle.
What does that unbridled image say to you?
Well, it sounds wild, untamed, but also pure. Like these aren't beaten down workhorses.
Exactly. It represents a connection to nature, but also horses were deeply tied to pagan rituals, to fertility cults. They were sacred. She's offering nobility and military might, but on her terms, the terms of the old way.
It's a flex. She's saying, I have the cavalry, and it's stronger because it's part of the land.
It is. And then she moves from military power to economic power, the 12 mills.
Right, 12 mills with millstones of red gold and silver-laden wheels. I mean, that's just opulent.
It's immense wealth, but what's a mill in the Middle Ages? It's not just a building.
It's infrastructure.
It's the engine of the economy. Mills mean land ownership, control of food. If you own the mills, you own the town. This confirms our troll is a stand-in for a powerful landed woman. A local chieftain, maybe.
So she's not just rich, she's a competitor, a rival power center.
Correct. And then she offers the sword.
The gilded sword with 15 golden rings, and she promises victory in any battle.
It's a promise of victory, yes. But your notes mention something about the legal context of weapons.
Yeah, I see it here. The right to bear arms was often stripped from non-Christians.
Exactly. So she's not just offering him a magic sword. She's asserting that she currently possesses the means of violence. She's saying, I can arm you in a way the church can't. I can give you the old strength.
And finally, the silk shirt. Not sewn by needle or thread. That sounds so delicate compared to a sword.
It's my favorite detail. Not sewn by needle or thread refers to what some call textile magic, the sacred labor of women in the old culture. It's about high-class refinement.
It's bespoke,
Yeah.
ritual craft.
Yes. So let's just recap the offer. She's bringing military might, economic dominance, legal victory, and high cultural status to the table.
She is literally handing him the keys to the kingdom.
She is. And the Christian framing of the song twists this. It presents legitimate forms of status as temptations, as dangerous or unclean simply because they come from a pagan source.
It's a way of saying, yes, she has gold, but it's troll gold. It's tainted. Don't touch it.
Which brings us to the rejection. Because Manelik hears all this, and his response is, well, it's startlingly pragmatic.
It is the aha moment of this whole deep dive. He says, and I'm reading the translation, such gifts I would surely accept if thou wert a Christian woman.
Just let that sink in.
If thou wert a Christian woman. He doesn't say, I can't accept this because you have tusks. He doesn't say, I can't accept this because you're evil.
No, he says, I would take all your stuff, marry you, and we'd run this town if you just had the right paperwork.
It's brutal bureaucracy.
It is the logic of exclusion. This completely destroys the monster narrative. He admits the wealth is good. The woman is not rejected because she's monstrous. She's rejected for her religious classification.
And this reflects that social blockade you mentioned. This wasn't just about hurt feelings.
Not at all. It was about survival. Morality, kindness, wealth, none of it mattered. If you didn't convert, you were a troll. Socially dead. The notes even mention that non-Christians were denied inheritance rights. So it's a binary system. Convert, and you're human. Don't, and you lose everything. And notice how Manelik's tone shifts right after he says that.
Oh, yeah. He goes from being pragmatic straight to insults, he says. However, thou art the worst mountain troll, the spawn of Neck and the devil.
This is the demonization phase, and we need to pause on the spawn of Neck.
The Neck, or the Nyx, right?
Yeah.
A water spirit that plays the violin.
Yes. But here's the tragic context. In folklore, the neck is always weeping. Why? Because the church taught that the neck has a spirit, but no soul.
What's the difference there?
A soul meant you could be saved, you could go to heaven. The neck, and by extension all the creatures of the old way, were part of nature. They could feel pain, create beauty, but they could not be saved. They were destined to perish.
That is just heartbreaking.
It was a very effective tool for the church. It taught people that the old world, no matter how beautiful, was a dead end. So when Manelik calls her the Spawn of Neck, he's not just calling her a monster.
He's telling her, you have no soul, you have no future.
And look at the timing. He only says this after she tries to cross that social boundary. He demonizes her to make the rejection feel righteous.
This is a psychological tactic. First you refuse them, then you dehumanize them to clear your own conscience.
Exactly. I didn't reject a woman. I rejected a devil. It turns his intolerance into a virtue.
So we get to the end of the song. Manelik has delivered this brutal smackdown. How does the monster react? You expect her to breathe fire out.
Or turn him to stone. You'd expect retaliation, but that's not what happens.
The lyrics say, The mountain troll ran out the door. She shakes and wails hard.
She cries. This is the reaction of a human being who is heartbroken.
It's pure grief. It completely shatters the monster idea.
It really does. And then she delivers the final line, which I think is the most misunderstood line of the whole song.
Had I got the handsome young man, I would have got rid of my plight.
Now, in a fairy tale, plight means a magical curse. If I kiss the prince, I stop being a frog.
Right, the Disney version.
But with our political lens on, what is her actual plight here? What problem is she trying to solve?
Her plight is that she's an outsider. She's isolated.
Her plight is social isolation. In this era, marriage was the only vehicle for assimilation. It was the only way to gain legitimacy for her and her people. If she marries Manalig, she bridges the gap. She secures her property.
So when she says, I would have got rid of my plight, she means I would have been safe.
I would have been accepted. I would have been considered human. By rejecting her, Manalig isn't just saying no to a wedding. He is condemning her and her entire culture to remain outsiders. He's sealing their fate.
And eventually they get erased. They run back into the mountain, into the dark, and history just turns them into trolls.
Exactly. The song is a memory shaped by the winners. The indigenous population, the keepers of the old ways, they become creatures. And the converters, like Manalig, they become the only true humans.
It really makes you wonder how many other fairy tales are just smear campaigns against the people who lost.
Folklore often hides the ugly truths of how societies are built. We tell stories about monsters so we don't have to talk about the neighbors we exiled.
So why does this matter today? I mean, besides it being a fascinating rereading of a great tune.
I think it matters because the mechanism hasn't changed. We still have Manaligs and we still have trolls. We still have dominant cultures that demand tonal assimilation as the price of entry.
And we still have that idea of, I'd accept your skills, your value, if you just believed what we believe.
Right. And it forces you to question your own narratives. When you hear stories today about dangerous outsiders trying to enter our society, trying to propose a merger, are you actually hearing the voices of people just asking for a seat at the table?
And are we demonizing them to make ourselves feel better about locking the door?
That's the question. The troll in the story wasn't dangerous because she had claws. She was dangerous because she had wealth, power, and a different way of life.
It's a heavy thought to leave you with, but that's what we do here. Next time you hear a folk song about a goblin or a troll, maybe listen a little closer.
You might hear a history lesson you weren't expecting.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.